What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bringing your latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. So here it is, January 19th. And for the Nets, the last 4 games went basically how I expected them to go. They started off with a tough loss to the Rockets. James Harden just was too much for them down the stretch. Well, actually, throughout most of the game, it was too much. It was relatively close, but the Nets could not execute well down the stretch, and they lost 99-113. Then they played the Grizzlies on Wednesday, which I was at that game to watch my favorite player, Vince Carter. At that game, I wanted Vince Carter to score 20 points with the Nets win, but instead, Vince Carter scored 0 points and the Nets lost. So that was a little bit of a disappointing night for me. That game, kind of more the same thing. Nets were hanging around most of the game, relatively in it. They could not do anything against Marc Gasol or especially Zach Randolph, who had like 16, 17 rebounds or something like that. They just couldn't get any boards, and those guys just dominated them on the front court. Yeah, that's basically it, and Nets lost that game. So I expected the Nets to lose those 2 games like they did. You know, they hung tight, but loss is a loss. Then, though, they had a home-and-home against the Wizards, and they beat the Wizards pretty convincingly in the first game on Friday in Washington, 102-80. Now, the reason was simple. Brook Lopez and Jarrett Jack. Now, I've been saying for the longest time that Brook Lopez needs to become the focal point of this offense. I feel like the Nets have gotten away from him because he was hurt and Plumlee has played so well. But now it's time for them to realize that this team was originally supposed to be built around Brook Lopez and was originally supposed to be playing an inside-out, low post, similar to the triangle type style of game. And that's the way they played against the Wizards. And what a surprise, Lopez had a great game, and they won by 22. So let's stop and think about this for a second. The Nets won 1 game in the span of 8. And it was when they played through Brook Lopez. Now, who said something about how the Nets need to go back to the way they were in their last NetsBoy episode? Oh, yeah, it was NetsBoy. I don't think it was a coincidence that Lopez played well and the Nets won. Then they followed up that game against the Wizards again on a home-and-home, and they tough loss on that one. Now, I was at that game as well. I wasn't expecting to go to that game, but I got some tickets into it and went to that game as well. That game, the Nets were there the whole way, playing well. Jarrett Jack was phenomenal. Lopez played well again. Not like super well. He had 15 points and like 5 rebounds, but played decently. But down the stretch of the game, the Nets just couldn't execute, and they couldn't stop Nene of all people. And Nene ended up dominating in the post and just dominating in general, and the Nets ended up losing by 9. My problem with that game was the execution by the Nets down the stretch. Their offensive execution became give the ball to Joe Johnson. And Joe Johnson did nothing. And guess what? Joe Johnson hasn't done anything these last few games. Actually, if you want to blame a player for the lack of success of the Nets the last few games, it's been Joe Johnson. I don't think there's been one game in the last 8 games in which Joe Johnson broke 20 points. I mean, he might have had one, but you would think with Darren Williams out and the Nets struggling, Joe Johnson would take his game to the next level. But he hasn't. He's been very inconsistent, very poor shot selection, more than he normally does. And it's kind of like, wait a minute. This guy really should be the second, if not best player on the team. Really, he should be the best player. And he's just kind of there. And it's because of how great Mason Plumlee and Jarrett Jack has played that it's kind of become a problem. You know, the development of Mason Plumlee and the play of Jarrett Jack has both been a great thing for the Nets, but it's also been the problem with the Nets. Because those 2 guys now, first of all, went from the bench to starters, now weakening their second unit even more. But not only that, those guys have developed their own 2-man pick-and-roll style game and have excluded Brook Lopez and Joe Johnson, who are really your 2 best players on your team right now. So yes, those guys are playing well, and there's no knock on those 2 guys. But there's a reason why Joe Johnson and Brook Lopez are on this team. They're the focal points of this offense. Plumlee and Jarrett Jack should not be the focal point, okay? Jarrett Jack should not be taking 15 to 20 shots a game. Plumlee should not be taking more than 10 shots a game. But they are. Now, they are playing well, and so it's hard to completely knock it unless you really realize the fact that this team could be a lot more efficient if they played through Johnson and Lopez and let those guys go back to what they do best, and that's be really good role players. It's like when you're driving a car and you have, regular gasoline in it, and they ask for best performance or for most efficient, use super. You know what I mean? When you have like a sports car or something like that, the car will still run on regular, but it becomes more efficient and more fuel efficient and more of a better car with the Supreme gas. So really, it's like the Nets are playing through regular gas when they should be playing through Supreme gas because it's better and it'll make everything else work better. And maybe that's the reason why this team has lost 8 of their last 9 games. Maybe that's the reason. Because though these guys are playing well, they could be playing better. And I think the best example of that is what we saw against the Wizards when they won. Joe Johnson had a decent game that game too. Not a big one, but Lopez had a great game. And look, Jack needs to play well because without Darren Williams, he has to step it up, and he's done a good job. Because remember, my NetsBoy formula for the Nets' success, they need, between the big three of Joe Johnson, Darren Williams, and Brook Lopez, they need, if all 3 of them play well, the Nets will win. If 2 of the 3 of them play well, the Nets have a chance to win. And if only 1 of them play well, they will most likely lose. And if none of them play well, they will lose. Remember that? So with Darren Williams out of the equation, you only got Joe Johnson and Brook Lopez. But now, with the fact that Lopez is coming off the bench and not really being utilized the way he should be, Lionel Hollins, he's kind of coming out of the equation. And now it's just kind of falling on Joe Johnson, who has played poorly, which makes him out of the equation. Oh, look at that. No players playing well in the equation. What did that mean? Oh, yeah, the Nets will lose. They're 1-8 the last 9 games? Well, what about the game they won? Wait a minute. Brook Lopez played well that game. Jarrett Jack played well that game. Now, I'm substituting Darren Jack right now in as Darren Williams because Darren Williams is not on the team. So really, it's like Brook Lopez, Joe Johnson, and Jarrett Jack. So really, what's been happening is really just Jarrett Jack has played well for most of these games, except for the game they won. Jarrett Jack and Brook Lopez played well. What did 2 players mean for the equation, for NetsBoy's equation? That they can win a game. So, you see what I'm saying here? And the reason why this is happening is, though, the Nets are taking the ball out of the other guy's hands. Mason Plumlee has played phenomenal for the Nets this season. And I like Plumlee. I like him a lot. But he should not be getting offensive touches. They should not be relying on him to score. They should not be trying to get him the ball in the post. They should not be always trying to look to lob it to him. Yes, they should sometimes. But he should not be a focal point of the offense. And that's where the Nets are struggling right now. They're so pick and roll happy with Plumlee and Jack that Joe Johnson isn't getting involved the way he should be. And Brook Lopez isn't getting involved the way he should be. Brook Lopez is one of the most dominant low post scorers in the game. Joe Johnson is one of the most dominant offensive players in the game when he's on. These are guys that should be getting 15 to 20 shots off a game, both of them. But they're not, because Plumlee is getting these touches and these opportunities, and Jack is getting these touches and opportunities. And honestly, yes, they've played well, but like I just said before with the fuel efficiency thing, the team will still run with these guys, but is it really the best that it should be? Think about it. The Nets are 1-8 the last 9 games. They need to go back to what their original format was. Low post to Johnson, low post to Lopez. Play off of those 2 guys. Lopez needs to realize that he shouldn't shoot the ball every time he gets the ball. And trust me, he'll figure that out pretty soon. He kind of already has, but he's gotten better about it. And Johnson always been relatively decent in the low post. Jarrett Jack should go back to being a point guard guy who can score when needed. Plumlee should go back to an energy guy who can get rebounds, play good defense, and finish above the rim. Those two guys should not be the focal point of this offense. It's a reason why this team is struggling now, and that's what it is. Lionel Hollins was so excited about how well the team played when they had those two guys. Remember, they won like 6 in a row or 5 in a row? Wait, they never won that much. They won 3 in a row. They only won 3 in a row, but they were like 4 of their last 5 with the team they had. That's because they played really crappy teams. And, you know, you can still win a race running off of regular gas if you're competing against like a bicycle. But that being said, look. The proof is in the pudding. Things are moving right now. I think I might have accidentally unplugged my printer and then plugged it back in. Anyway, but look at it. I'm showing you the equation. NetsBoy's equation for the Nets' success. I'm showing it. We're seeing it in action. And the Nets need to make that equation work. They need to get Johnson and Lopez involved because both those guys are the 2 best players on the Nets right now. Which takes me to my next thing. The trade rumors involving Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez has been linked to trade rumors with the Miami Heat, the Charlotte Hornets, and the Thunder. Look. Lopez is my favorite net. I will be crushed if the Nets trade Brook Lopez. I actually don't know what I would do because he really is my favorite net, and it's kind of like, it goes a little bit beyond the fact that, you know, I like him, but because him and Darren Williams are the only 2 players left from the New Jersey Nets, which was my team. You know, I've been a Net fan for 15 years, and I started as a New Jersey Net fan. Those are the only 2 players on the team from the New Jersey years. Now, Darren Williams, I don't count him as a New Jersey Net because he only played a half a season with the Nets. He was traded for... Oh, no, excuse me. He played a year and a half with the Nets. But he didn't really want to be there. He was all just like... I don't even count him as a true New Jersey Net. But Brook Lopez was drafted by the Nets, has played only for the Nets, and really has developed into one of the most skilled big men in the game as a Net. If Lopez gets traded as a fan that really is passionate about this team, it kind of hurts. And I will be very upset. And I don't think the Nets should trade him. I said this in the last episode. First of all, I think him and Plumlee can work together. I know they haven't done a good job yet of it, but skill-wise, you would think they should be able to work well together. Lopez is the low post scoring guy and the offensive guy, and then Plumlee's the rebounding and defense guy. Now, I think where the problems occur is when you go against smaller teams that have quicker power forwards who play small, because neither Plumlee or Lopez are that good on the perimeter. That's where that team tends to struggle. But that's when you take Mirza Teletovic, because he can guard those guys. But I think that really they should hold on to both of them. But I'm going to be honest. If you're going to get rid of one of those 2 guys, I'd get rid of Mason Plumlee. Now, I know that's hard to say because he's played well, but I said it last episode. The ceiling for Plumlee, I personally think he's reaching it. I think he might be able to develop a more consistent offensive game still. You know, he can make occasionally hook shots and so on and so forth. I think that will improve, but I think defensively he's not really going to get much better. Rebounding-wise, he's not going to get much better. And overall, offensively, I don't think he's going to get a lot better. He's not going to be a guy like Brook Lopez. He's not going to be a guy you can... I did it again. I'm obviously kicking something. Setting off machines. He's not a guy who you can count on every night to give you 20 points, because he's not going to do that. But Lopez, on the other end, we saw it. 2 years ago, he was an all-star. He averaged 20 points a game and 7 rebounds and over 2 blocks a game. That team won 49 games. Yes, they lost in the first round, but that's not the point. And that was because Lopez was hitting that peak. Now, Lopez had a setback with another foot injury, and I know he's prone to injuries. But look, no one's giving up on Derrick Rose. He's been hurt more often than Lopez. Yes, I know Brook Lopez is a big man, and centers have notoriously problems with their feet a lot of the time. But still, Lopez's ceiling is higher. Lopez can still get better. That's the thing. Lopez is 26 years old. He can definitely get better on the defensive end and definitely get better on the rebounding end. And even he can get better offensively, let's be honest. He can even get better than what he is now. The ceiling is higher for him. If you're a true fan, wouldn't you want a player who has a higher ceiling? Especially since, honestly, I still think between Lopez and Plumlee, I mean, they're kind of, I say they're like the same level because Lopez is a better offensive player, but Plumlee's a better rebounding and defender, so they're kind of the same type of player. So, if you have two guys who have the same type of level, at the same level, talent-wise right now, but one guy's ceiling is here and the other guy's ceiling is here, why don't you take the guy who can be up here? Now, oh, his contract. Yeah, he's got a bigger contract, but guess what? Plumlee's going to get a huge contract at the end of next year when his rookie contract is up. He's going to get a huge extension. So why does that make a damn difference? And, well, style of play. The Nets are supposed to be a slow-paced half-court team. That's their style of play. Lopez fits that. But the Nets have gotten away from that because they found some success when Lopez got hurt and so on and so forth with Plumlee and Jack. But guess what? It's not working anymore. You got to go back to the way this team was supposed to run. Lionel Hollins, do you remember what the original game plan was of this team back when it was Joe Johnson, Darren Williams, Brook Lopez, Garnett, and like Bogdanovic? It was play inside out, but with Lopez and Johnson. Get Lopez the balls down in the post. When they double team, you passed it out and you found the open man for the three, or you gave it to Joe Johnson, who would also post up and do the same thing. Occasionally, you mixed it in with some pick and rolls with Darren Williams and Brook Lopez, or Joe Johnson and Brook Lopez. And all the other pieces kind of fell into place. That was the original offensive scheme, the original strategy of this Nets team. Brook Lopez got hurt early in the year, so they had to change their scheme. And since they changed their scheme at the beginning of the year, the Nets have not once gone back to that scheme. They have not. And if you watched every game, you see they don't play that way anymore. They do a lot of isolations. Let me tell you something. Isolation is different than posting the ball up. It really is. There's a difference between Joe Johnson going one-on-one or Brook Lopez going one-on-one than Brook Lopez getting the ball in the post or Joe Johnson getting the ball in the post. That's a different type of offense. It is. The iso ball and post scoring are two totally different things. Don't get confused with it, all right? I know people are saying, the Nets do play that way. No, they don't. They played that way against the Wizards when they won with Brook Lopez. Now, those trade rumors, like I said, the Nets pulled out of them at the last minute, so hopefully Billy King is listening to me or agrees with what I think, that really Lopez should be the guy staying on this team. I don't think any of the big three of their team should really be gone off this team right now. Personally, if you're going to trade any of them, I think Joe Johnson should probably go first because he's been the most inconsistent. I'm going to give Darren Williams a slight pass because he's been hurt. But Joe Johnson's been inconsistent. He has the biggest contract, and he's the oldest. I think if you're going to get rid of a player, you should get rid of him. Darren Williams, I think when Darren Williams was healthy this year, he was great. And I think that, if he can get back to becoming fully healthy after the rib injury, I'd keep him. But maybe he should go too. But I think Lopez is the last of them you should trade. Really, I think they should look about the rest of the pieces. Bojan Bogdanovic, he hasn't quite worked out the way people thought he would. He's had glimpses of greatness, but he's just hasn't quite figured it out. He's really struggling defensively. And Teletovic, well, I like Mirza. I think he hasn't played that well of late either, but we all know what he can do, so I like him. But then, if you go beyond those guys, no one else of the role players have played that well for the Nets. Personally, I think it is Joe Johnson's fault right now, and the fact that the Nets have been hurt with Darren Williams and they haven't been fully healthy. That could contribute to it. But I think that if you're Billy King and you're really looking to find an improvement in this team, you need to find a better wing player to play at that starting two position. That's where this team struggles. This, starting Bojan Bogdanovic or Karasev thing, or Alan Anderson, that's not working. Billy King's got to find another wing player who can start in that spot, who can provide a consistent play on the defensive end and an offensive punch when needed. Also, I think they should probably play through Kevin Garnett a little bit more. He's played very well. And I think that they should try some pick and pop offense with him more often. Just an idea. But overall, they should get back to their old style of play now that Lopez really has been full healthy now and has showed what he can do. I think that's what they should do. And if you're going to trade one of those two, trade Plumlee. And listen, I think the Nets could get a lot for Mason Plumlee. I think the Nets could probably get more for trading Plumlee than Brook Lopez right now. I do. Because a lot of teams like Plumlee. He's young. They think he can develop, so on and so forth. Maybe they should stop holding on to Plumlee so tightly and think about maybe trading Joe Johnson and Mason Plumlee for a player. Or Darren Williams and Mason Plumlee for a player like they originally thought they were going to do with the Sacramento Kings. Remember that? I would have done that trade. Just an idea. Because I feel like the key to the Nets is to go back to the way they were. That being said, the next 3 games for the Nets are all winnable games. They're on a West Coast trip. They got the Sacramento Kings on Wednesday. They beat them last time they played them. They should beat them again. Hopefully, they'll be able to figure it out. Then on Thursday, they play the Clippers. They will probably lose that game, but you never know. A lot of it will have to do with, will Darren Williams come back? He's supposed to go for an MRI, I think, on Monday. Later today. So maybe they can win that game and shock some people. And then they play the Jazz on Saturday, another game that they should win. So, honestly, the Nets should win 2 out of the next 3 games. And I think they could if they do what I'm saying and go back to the way they used to play and play inside out. That's what they've got to do. Okay? Okay? So, hopefully they do that. Hopefully they start turning it around, because right now the Nets are making NetsBoy look really dumb. Because at the beginning of this year, NetsBoy went on a long rant about how dumb it was that Vegas had the Nets over and under 41 wins. And I said, there's no such thing as a sure bet in Vegas, but I would almost say it's a sure bet that the Nets will win more than 41 games, blah, 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 blah. I'm NetsBoy. Right now, NetsBoy looks like an idiot for saying that. I still believe the Nets will be over 500 at the end of the year. Yes, they're 7 games under right now, but this team, to me, it really is not a under 500 team. Right now they're playing like it because I think they're getting away with what they should be doing, but I do believe that they will be over 500. No chance in hell are they going to win 48 to 52 games like I thought they would at the beginning of the year. But I still believe that they could be an over 500 team, and I actually think that this team is probably, if they really figure it out like they should be around what they were last year, 40, I'd say maybe 43 to 46 wins. And to me, that's not completely out of the question. The season's not quite half over yet. So, I think that they should be able to do that. I really do. But they just got to get back to the way things were. And please, don't trade Brook Lopez. I'm going to be crushed. A lot of Net fans don't like Brook Lopez all of a sudden now. When I was at both those games, there were fans heckling him. It's not his fault. Right now, he's one of the best scoring options they've got. The team just isn't good, but they've got to figure it out. Anyway, I got to stop. This video's 24 minutes now. It's a very long video. But it's just the truth. Hopefully, Lionel Hollins and the Nets, somehow one of those, a Net player, Lionel Hollins, or anyone on the coaching staff is one of my 20 subscribers or one of my 15 viewers, and they see this. Go back to the way things work. Go back to your original offensive strategy because your new one is not working. Go back to your old team that you originally planned on having this team be before Lopez got hurt with the ankle injuries earlier in the year. Do it. So until then, hopefully the Nets can figure things out because they're making me look like an idiot. I don't like that. So, this is NetsBoy signing off.